All right, everybody, it's Steve with Real Progressives. Welcome to the show. It has been a hell of a week. Everybody has been bouncing all over the place with all kinds of crazy stuff. The 0.000000003% of these white freaks that are sitting there marching around, sig heiling and all that stuff, notwithstanding, we're going to talk a little bit about a fun subject tonight. It's actually, we're going to make fun of a subject, more importantly, but we're going to make it as fun as we can to just decimate the barter economy that some of our less economically minded friends like to raise up and throw at us like somehow or another it's the answer to something. We're going to have some fun with it tonight. So without further ado, let me bring on Sir Ellis. Ellis, welcome to the show, sir.
How you doing, Stephen?
Stephen's doing fine. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad at all.
So let's have some fun. So earlier today we were talking about the barter economy and how we're getting bombarded with people that just keep bringing this stuff up like somehow or another they found a nugget of gold or a chicken neck or a frog leg or something that they want the economy to be based on. And we're just going to have a little fun. So you sat there, we were going back and forth with funny names that we could put up for the show. And then finally you dropped the bomb. Hey, man, it's like the 310 to Yuma economy.
Yeah, it's because you brought up, what's his name, like plugging up the water supply, on the damming up the river on his property and not letting it flow down there. And it reminded me of Yuma because he was holding up that little piece of jewelry, I don't know, that he got out of his wife's thing. Let me turn the corner. Just let me get enough to turn the corner.
Oh my God. So here,
like I was saying just before the show, in reality, what we should have called it was the Book of Elonomics. Because there was some serious barter going on there.
Maybe some Mad Max.
Yeah, that's some Mad Max stuff.
Here, I
want to know about the toe cutter.
All right, so I'm gonna bring up your tweet from earlier today. You're on the screen here, sir, so you know. It wasn't a tweet. I'm sorry, I'm living in two worlds here. But I'm gonna bring on the 310 to Yuma post that you put on earlier today.
Look here.
So everybody understands what we're talking about. This right here is just priceless, right? So go ahead and read it in your perfect voice for this. Go ahead and give it your voice.
Look here, you ain't paid me for the cattle feed I let you. I'm going to dam up the river that runs through my property to your ranch. You ain't got no water, boy. And if you don't pay, by God, I'm going to burn your barn down.
310 to Yuma economics, baby.
Yuma-nomics.
I mean, seriously, this goes back to Clive and Bundy. Clive was a good man. He just wanted to dam up the river for his, he wanted to be able to feed his cattle on the government land, and he just didn't much care for paying no fees or nothing like that. And he was going to dam it up. He was going to do what he had to do to take care of his own. Didn't matter who was downstream. He was going to do what he do.
Yeah, it's the whole thing about that is this is one of the more absurd conclusions to the barter thing. You know, of course, like in 310 to Yuma, there were monetary instruments, obviously, because they were going to pay him, $200 to go help get this guy to Yuma. But the point is the wild, wild west thing about it. But even better is the Book of Eli. All right, even better is the Book of Eli, because that would demonstrate to you conclusively what a barter economy would end up looking like. People look at it as though it would be this giant paradise, okay, of people that, oh, hey, Steve, did I tell you my car is on the fritz? What's wrong? Well, I don't know. I think got an oil leak. Well, hell, I can fix that for 2 apple pies and a loaf of banana bread. what if what if somebody doesn't accept a loaf of banana bread or apple pie as payment for something? You've got to have access to everything, and you've got a nation that's vast. Okay, so the industrial sectors of the United States, okay, they're manufacturing steel. You need wood to build your house and all this other stuff. How are you going to build? How are you going to get the concrete? Pour the concrete. If the concrete company doesn't accept banana bread, what if it wants payment in reading glasses? What are you supposed to do?
Well, so let me take this a step further to what some of my friends talk about when we go down these paths, because this is the old libertarian logic, and now it's infected some of the left. And you go back and you think to yourself, well, these people, they control what matters to them, what they'll accept in payment. So when these warlords take over the water supply, when the warlords take over whatever fertile land they have, because my property rights. That's how barter economies work, right? It's not like the government owns everything, then suddenly you barter. It's like either or. Either the government can handle itself or the people handle themselves. And, quite frankly, I always think to myself, well, Mad Max, we got ourselves a control of the oil supply. You want oil, you're going to have to take it. And all of a sudden, the guys with the friggin' freedom spikes and the liberty spikes riding there. They're coming after, shooting.
I'm the Night Rider, baby!
Riding the planes with friggin' pedals and stuff.
I am a fuel-injected suicide machine!
Yeah, let me tell you something. I got me a golden goose over there. That goose over there done plops out a good 10 eggs a day. I just can't even stand it, man. It's just crazy.
The silliness of it is what we should do is talk about how they imagine it, and then show the problems and what it implies and what the end result actually would be. I think that's what we should do, Stuart.
Go. Well, okay, so let's what I want to
we're laughing our asses off right now, but people probably don't understand why we're laughing so damn hard, because the conclusion is worthy of Monty Python. It really is. It's so absurd. You can do an entire film about it. Monty Python and the barter economy.
Well, sure, perchance will you give me some porridge for a sloth, for a snail? I've got several snails. I'd like to trade you
the
for
Knights of Meat
porridge.
Demand a sacrifice.
Well, I already got me too many snails, but how about your daughter? I'll take your daughter in payment. How about that?
How about ice cubes?
All right, so let me just state this. So one of the things that's great about modern monetary theory is that it shows us that the state theory, state currency. There's a proper term here. What is it? Not state currency theory, state theory of currency, or something to that effect.
You're getting there.
Anyway, bottom line is that the federal government creates its currency to provision itself. And ultimately, it taxes in that currency so that it drives the use of said currency. And since we have a national currency, it means that you can spend over here, spend over there, and your dollar has the same whatever everywhere you go. They take payment as is. Now, we go to the barter economy. You're in Maine. You're going by your wagon over here to friggin', Kalamazoo. And they say, well, we only take llama spit for payment. There is no central authority. So at this point in time, you kind of got to pick or choose. You either have a functioning government or you have a non-functioning government. Start there, because that right there is the bedrock of this whole thing, in my opinion.
The problem, I noticed that there's some people that want to know why would some people on the left, and this is only some people on the left, okay, it's not everybody, but why would some people on the left want a barter economy? And I'll tell you exactly why. These people believe that the monetary system that we have today, you know, Federal Reserve notes, US dollars, whatever you want to call it, British pounds, Australian dollars, they believe that the monetary system was created by the oligarchy, for the oligarchy, to use to oppress us. You see, it's inherently evil and it can't be used for anything but the benefit of the rich, okay? So it has to be wiped away, and we have to forget about having national economies, and we have to go back to local economies. You see, everything has to be local, all right? And the only way they can see to do that is to barter because it's so effective on the local level, and it works. Now, I should point out, all right, that if barter does work between individuals, it certainly does. As long, you know, if I can find a mechanic to fix my car for 2 apple pies and a sweater that I knitted, you know, good for me, all right, and good for him, because, you know, that works. But you can't operate an economy like this, all right? And so we're going to explore the reasons why, and in the end, hopefully, you'll find out that the conclusion is so absurd that it's laughable. And so what Steve was saying was, with a state currency like what we have, whether you're Canada, UK, US, Australia, Japan, the reason why the US government, we'll talk about the US government, the reason why the US government issues currency is one reason only, all right? It needs to provision itself, so it taxes. The tax allows it to provision itself with goods and services that it needs, all right? You'll have to understand, the government itself needs paper, pencils, chairs, pens, ink, everything that you can think of, so that it can function as government. Now, how can it do that without going broke and ensure that it can get a hold of whatever it needs to function in perpetuity in a civilized manner? And the answer is, well, it has to tax. All right? The tax is a mechanism of force, if you want to call it that. It's a sufficient condition to drive the currency. So the government goes down and it says, I'm imposing a tax, and it's payable only in a thing called US dollars. That's it. That's the only way that you can settle it. Now, the market at this particular point doesn't have any US dollars because the government hasn't created them. So what it does is it takes its goods and its services and goes to the government and sells them to the government. The government then decides what price it will pay for each individual good in its own currency, and then it spends those dollars into existence to buy those things. Then the private sector has the dollars, okay? It can settle the tax liability and save whatever it has left over, it can spend them, okay? All right, but in the end, the whole point is to provision government. So it taxes to provision itself, and then spends those dollars into existence so that you can pay your taxes, and it can provision itself. It can buy iPhones, it can buy carpet, and never have to worry about running out of money, so it knows that it can provision itself with whatever it needs to function as government in perpetuity, you know, forever. As long as there's no natural disaster or war where a foreign nation comes in and occupies the country, we're all good. Okay. Now, with the barter thing, what happens is you go down to your local economy, the local level, okay? And this is one of those things where, just like government household budgets and government household budget thing, this conflation doesn't work, okay? This is another fallacy of composition. The micro level doesn't translate to the macro level here. So you get down to the local level and people start trading chickens and geese and little bits of lint for other goods. In other words, they're trading one commodity for another, okay? And this is all fine and dandy. But you've got the United States is a large nation, okay? So what happens is you've got all of these little economies, thousands of localities, all accepting perhaps different items, different commodities as payment. Okay, no one knows. I mean, you could walk over here and find it from Dave, the cow, the milk cow owner. He might accept pizza in exchange for his milk, but another dairy farmer might not accept pizza at all. So, you know, it's all a big mess. All right. So The one thing, though, that's going on here is that you can't have a functioning federal government if there's a barter economy in play here. And the reason why is the government itself can't provision itself with the goods and services that it needs to function as government, because it has to first have the commodities, be in possession of the commodities necessary to buy from the various localities, which could be thousands of different ones, okay? And in the end of things, this means that for the government, in order to be able to ensure that it can buy everything it needs, it would literally have to produce every single thing, okay, so that it knows that it has every conceivable payment option. But then the question becomes, if it's the only producer, if it's producing all the goods, then why does it need to buy anything? Okay, so there's your first absurd conclusion. The second absurd conclusion is that let's just assume that government doesn't exist because it can't have barter going on. Let's just say it's over here. And all of a sudden, various localities decide, this means of exchange, this barter thing's getting to be ridiculous. I mean, this guy over here, he's accepting used Kleenex as payment for this. And this guy over here is accepting this. And let's get together as producers and accept one type of commodity for another. There's a one single payment thing. And then it starts to develop by region. And what you end up happening is the people the merchants themselves who control the supply are now controlling the payment method, you understand? And so you end up with these giant cartels, okay? And if the government still exists at this point, how it does, we don't know. The government has only one choice. In order to function as government, it's going to have to bring in with military force, it's going to have to enter the private sector with military force and forcibly seize what it needs to function as government. And you either have that or you have no government at all. That's the whole point. You can't have government in a barter economy. It just doesn't work. In fact, over the history, I don't know how many years now, it's been thousands of years, there's never been evidence of a barter economy ever existing or even functioning. That's because it's unworkable. It just doesn't work. It will work between individuals, like I said, or maybe a very small community. But it's not something that can translate on a national scale. It's just absolutely stupid. And the idea that local economies can mind their own business, okay, so Sandwich, Illinois minds its own business, Chicago minds its own business, and these little towns in Florida mind their own business, and all these thousands and thousands of little towns are minding their own business, and somehow you have a nation. Somehow you're producing IMAX. Somehow you're producing... you can't even produce Kentucky Fried Chicken wet naps like that. I mean, you couldn't distribute them. So the whole thing is absolutely asinine. It really is. And these people think that this can work and you can still have a federal government. I mean, it's just, you can't even have an economy. Well, you can't have an iMac. Dell's going to make computers at Microsoft and Apple. Well, what do they accept as payment? I mean, they accept a lot of things. Pretty soon you're going to have Tim Cook there at Apple. He's going to be showing off his sales expectations to Wall Street. They're going to have film footage in the back of Apple's headquarters, a giant animal pen with like 1,000 cows and 80,000 chickens. I mean, it's not going to fucking work. It's not going to work. It can't work at all. Okay? And the main reason why, the entire reason why, is because you can't have a functioning federal government in place that is, shall we say, civilized. At least one that's not civilized. It's just not possible. You can't have a nation. What you're talking about is a libertarian's wet dream. We're talking about Mad Max on steroids. You're talking about the Book of Eli. Yeah, the Book of Eli. Hey, Steve, I've got a toothache, and I heard you're a dentist. Yes. Well, I'll tell you what, I need a tooth pull. I'll give you 7 Kentucky Fried Chicken wet naps, a pair of reading glasses, and X-Wing fighter here to have my bicuspid pulled out. This shit's not going to work. I mean, what if Steve says, I don't have any use for Kentucky Fried Chicken right now? I mean, what am I supposed to do? I guess I'm hooked, aren't I?
All right, so I wanna put this tweet up here, or this post you put up earlier, and I think it plays really well into this. Go ahead and read it in your Ellis voice.
What makes you think the founders decided to institute a government that was powerful enough to declare war, regulate commerce, and imprison, but for some reason or other decided that it would be a really smart idea to design it to be flat, busted, broke, totally incapable of producing its own currency? That's a great idea, isn't it? Hey, we're going to create the government of the United States of America, 1798. Great. What kind of a government shall it be? Well, it's going to be very powerful. It's going to be able to declare war. We can have a militia that we can have, you know, you get all that, and we can regulate commerce. We can deal with Indian tribes and whatnot. But I think it would be best if we just make it by design flat, busted, fucking broke, penniless, and we have to borrow and tax in order to have an income to spend. And that's a brilliant fucking idea, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think it's important to say while we're laughing, you know, as folks on the left, as folks that are trying to advance and make progress, folks that are trying to have a Green New Deal, folks that are trying to have Medicare for all, college debt relief, or eradication, you know, green energy. Let's think of some of these other wonderful things. Planes, trains, and automobiles. You know, we would have nothing. And quite frankly, when you hear these people say these things, I'm not going to say what party they reside in. I think you guys can do the math and figure out that there are left-wing parties that talk this kind of gibberish and nonsense that is absolutely anathema to progress. I don't know, Ellis, why would you think that anyone on the left now, knowing that it's an either-or thing, you can't have a Green New Deal with all this other bullshit, tearing down the system, ripping it out, barter this, crap that. I mean, do they even put together two logical thoughts, or are they completely so incoherent that we've got to leave them behind and we just got to keep pressing forward?
See, that's what I've been advocating for a while now, is just to leave people like that behind. And if they want to be a part of progress, if they want to be a part of solutions, you know, as momentum builds, maybe they come on board. But if they want to be obstructionists, then, you know, what can you do about it? If you're going to raise your fist in anger, simply because you just don't understand what's going on, right? Then maybe, you know, it falls upon you and your responsibility to actually educate yourself, find out what's going on. And I'm not talking about education, so let's listen to what Tulsi Gabbard has to say. That's not education. Right? I'm talking about getting down to the nuts and bolts and trying to figure out what the main problem is. Okay? And like we were talking last week about racial tensions. When it comes to racial tensions, you know, economics plays a magnificently large role in driving that. All right? No one is saying, though, that racism is 100% economics related. That's not what's being said. Okay. What we're saying is that economics, the bad macroeconomic policy, drives and it fuels racial tensions, because when you live so long in poverty, long-term unemployment, you get these things occurring. You know, and you get the little races coming out of the woodwork. All right. So this is a problem. It's a major problem. But the thing is that you want to reduce those tensions to the point where these asshats, these Nazis, are laughable idiots, you know, where people make fun of them and they don't view them as a threat. And the way you do that is you get them off the national stage. And the way you get them off the national stage is people no longer taking them seriously. How do you do that? Well, if you fill stomachs and you ensure prosperity for everybody, and everybody is doing fantastic and nobody has worries over basic needs anymore, nobody's competing for jobs, nobody's competing for all this, nobody's going to want to give that up. So when you got racists coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, the Jews, oh, black people, oh, Heil Hitler," people are like, you got a choice. You got these asshats here, these pinheads, or you got prosperity. No thanks, I'll take my full stomach. You guys can go fuck off back under your rock where you crawled out. And it gives us time to deal with the institutional problems that do need to be dealt with. Right? We do have a cultural problem in these institutions, and our culture has to keep changing. We have to keep moving forward. No denying it. But you can't just ignore the economics. And tearing down the system is stupid. I see. So your bedroom is a mess. You got clothes all over the fucking floor. Your mom's pissed off. And she's going to ground your ass and take away your Xbox if you don't start keeping your room clean. So the solution is to destroy your room and burn the house down. I mean, what the fuck? No, you got to start keeping your hands clean. All right. So what do you do here? Well, the same thing with the monetary system. The monetary system, is being used by politicians for the benefit of the rich. All right. Very simple to understand. That doesn't mean that the monetary system only helps the rich and only benefits the rich. It just means that this is the way it's being used. You can use it in another way too. You can reverse that process. All right. And it benefit everybody else. This can be done. So, if you understand what I'm saying here, you'll come to the realization if the government just spent for full employment and the public purpose and gave us the universal health care and all this stuff over a long enough period of time, with prosperity taking root and blossoming and whatnot, these things wouldn't be so much of an issue. And I'm not excusing them by saying that, but what I'm saying is that the nation can actually unify, begin to heal. And then we can do the right thing by people who have been tortured and abused by these asshats. And we can look into ways to fixing those institutional problems, all right? But you don't have to burn the entire system down to do that. That's just silly. You get that from Marxists too, by the way, Stephen.
Absolutely. I want to speak to that for a second.
Hey, look, I come from Marx background, all right? And Koleski, all right? Let's just be clear, all right? And I agree with a lot of things that Marxists say, but here's the problem. I believe with the core principles, the core insights, we'll call it, that Marx taught, but Marxists have one view and I have another. I would like to use the monetary system itself to save lives and to create happiness and prosperity for all human beings across the globe, all around the globe. And Marxists say that what I'm proposing, and what MMTists propose, is just nothing but propping up capitalism, all right? So, you got to deal with that ad hominem, because that's what it really is. I mean, it's meant to be an ad hominem, but if you call it propping up capitalism, I mean, oh well, all right? But
it's infuriating, Ellis, because, we as, the little people running around trying to say, I think you guys said you wanted a Green New Deal. I saw you guys with your hand in the air saying Green New Deal. Jill's got the greatest policies in the world. We love them. Mm-hmm. And then when you talk to them about, hey, let me tell you how we can pay for it, they go, well, that's just propping up capitalism, man.
Right. You get that
just propping up capitalism. We're going to tear the system down. And you're like, look, snapperhead. What the we need a Green New Deal, correct? Yes or no? Well, yeah, but we got to tear the system down. You, my friend, need to be left behind. You got no use for that. What do you do with that? I mean, really, what do you do with a person that says something horrific like that? I don't even know what to do with that.
Look, okay, if the Marxists somehow manage to seize power tomorrow over Congress and suddenly socialism is going to and it was democratic socialism, I mean, nothing like you see in North Korea, because that's not socialism, right? but if it were actually democratic socialism, I wouldn't have a problem with that, all right? But the problem is that's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to tear the system out. So what you're asking me to do is sit around here and wait 50, 100, 150, 200 years for you to be able to end capitalism before you can start saving lives. No.
Would that make them killers?
So look, see, if what I'm doing is patching capitalism, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about MMTs in general. If what we're doing is we're using the monetary system correctly, and patching capitalism with, say, a job guarantee. Okay, and spending for the public purpose and ensuring a situation of full employment in perpetuity. And the job guarantee itself is shifting us towards sustainable output, certain segments towards sustainable output, so we're reducing the destruction of our limited resources. All right? If that's going on and people are surviving and people are thriving, all right, then if you want to call that propping up capitalism, okay, fine, I'm guilty. But I view that as a transitional means to a post-capitalist society. All right, we have to get there, and we can't do it off the backs of millions and millions of dead people because you don't want to prop up capitalism. And we're getting ready, I think, to discuss cryptocurrency here in a few moments, judging from one of those comments that just went by. How it relates to the barter economy. We were talking on the phone. We got way off the barter economy, didn't we? The Book of Eli-nomics, off the Kentucky Fried Chicken wet naps for an iPhone charge. Yeah, how in a barter system, eventually somebody would say, this is all unworkable. We've got to go to something, and they'd head for the old B word, the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin, let's use Bitcoin as a method of payment. Not going to work. It's not happening. It's not happening. It can't work.
Well, it could work if the government takes it over.
Theoretically. You know? But you see...
That's the point. They're not using it for that reason. They're using it because they're just trying to skirt detection. They're using it to hide transactions.
It's just a payment system. That's all it is. It's not a currency at all. Exactly. It's not a currency. It's a payment system. But Eric Timwin, he wrote an article, a couple of articles that he posted in New Economic Perspectives about Bitcoin itself, where he talked about, as a monetary instrument, the fair price of a Bitcoin is zero. Okay, and explain why. Because it's not exactly a monetary instrument, all right? We've talked about this on the show many times about what is a monetary instrument. A monetary instrument has to have an issuer, has to have face value, and it has to be accepted back by the issuer in payment for something, as payment for something. It's a promise to take it back, like the US government does, for instance, with the US dollar. The US dollar has an issuer, that's the US government. Okay. Number two, if you want to understand what I'm talking about, please listen rather than comment. Would you agree, Stephen? Because I'm explaining Bitcoin here.
Absolutely. If this is of interest to you, listen.
If you want to know what a Bitcoin really is and why you're wrong about it and how it really works, listen up. Otherwise, just keep talking. But those people who are interested, ignore the comments because I'm explaining. It's very important here. The US dollar is a monetary instrument because you have an issuer, which is the US government. All right, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, dollars have face value. You got a 1, a 5, a 10, a 50, a 20. And the US government promises to accept it back as payment for your taxes. All right. Bitcoin has no such thing. So as a monetary instrument, as Eric Timwin points out, as a monetary instrument, its fair value is zero. But as a commodity, who the fuck knows? But factually speaking, commodity money is not money. It has to be a monetary instrument. Remember what we just said. You need at least these three things. And a commodity, no one issues gold, okay, except the earth. And I doubt that you could speak to the earth and say, hey, would you take this back as payment for something? I mean, the earth's not an issuer, What you need to understand is monetary instruments are all man-made devices, all right? Bitcoin could be man-made, but it has no... There's no issuer that will accept it back as anything. So it's not a currency at all. It's just a method of payment. All right. And then the second thing that he brought up that I think is very important for people to understand. It's a payment system, excuse me. You have to have US dollars or whatnot. Okay. And the second thing he brought up was that it's inelastic. And you might hear economists talk about this. You hear people like us talk about this. Oh, inelasticity. What we're talking about is when we say that the Bitcoin is inelastic, the supply of it can't meet demand. It's not flexible enough. Like with the US dollar, the government can always issue more dollars to meet demand for something. But the Bitcoin itself, there's no one to increase or decrease that supply, so it's inelastic. It's highly problematic, all right? It's not a currency, it's a payment system, all right? So we need to understand that right away. So shifting to Bitcoin, all right, won't solve the problem, all right? And if the government, and there were barter going on, the government could do something very simple since it's the authority. It's a sovereign authority. It could just simply crush Bitcoin altogether. You're done. And then issue its own currency, right? Which it's doing right now. Or it could simply take Bitcoin, turn it into a currency, promise to accept it back as payment for something, and throw it out there and say, Bitcoin is now the currency of the US. And that's it, all right? My point being is that it's the government. The government can walk in and trample on your precious dreams, all right? Because it has the authority to do so.
All right, so Ellis, when we talk about issuing authorities and things like that, quite frankly, we're talking about is the ability of some authority to accept payment, to ensure that payment is accepted. And the only way to make sure that it's accepted is to have something like a tax levied against it that makes it so everyone needs to have said currency.
Right. The tax is the sufficient condition that drives the need for the currency, drives the demand for the currency.
So I hate to use the discussion of taxes not funding spending, but this right here is a great post that you put up earlier. And I want folks to understand what this is. Can you read it once again for us, sir?
Yeah, the correct view. It is because of federal tax that US dollars exist. The incorrect view is US dollars are private monetary instruments. The federal government is broke by design, and tax is to collect US dollars from the private sector so that it can have dollars to spend. That's the incorrect view. It is because of the federal tax that dollars exist. Because what happens is, in the beginning, the federal government lays a tax and then says it's payable only in US dollars, but there are no US dollars at this point in history. So everyone in the private sector goes, what the hell are US dollars, right? And the government says, well, I make them, only I produce them. I say, well, how do we get them? You're going to have to sell me carpet, rugs, wood, paper, pens, ink, chairs, everything you can imagine. And I'll pay you in that currency, and then you can settle the tax liability. You don't have to worry about the punishment. That's what drives the currency, the punishment. The government can enforce its tax collections, and everybody is aware of this. All right? And everybody knows that there are severe consequences for not paying that tax. So it's like Warren Mosler says. He gives years and years ago, he gave a perfect, beautiful example of what we're talking about right now. Imagine that you're in a room listening to me talk. All right? And I say, well, talk's over. You know, we've had drinks and stuff, and everybody's happy. But talk's over, and it's time to go. People get up to leave, but there's a guy standing at the door, the only door, with a machine gun. And it's loaded, and he points it at you, and he says, and I say, oh, by the way, you can't leave without a business card, man. The only way to get out that door is with a business card. And people are like, what? He's going to shoot us? Yeah, if you try and leave without this business card. Well, where do I get the business card? It's, well, I need help cleaning up the conference room. So if you guys want to help clean up the conference room, you'll clean up all the trash, put the chairs back. I'll pay you each a business card. Then you hand it to him, and he'll let you out the door. That is federal taxation in a nutshell. That's the IRS standing there with a gun, all right? And it basically says you're going to pay it or else, all right? And no one doubts the US government when it says or else. See how that works? So you need to get a hold of US dollars. Now, whether or not you personally get them by selling goods to the US government or selling your labor by accepting a job from the government, whether or not you do that or not is immaterial. You could go out and get a job from someone who already is in possession of US dollars, but you need to pay that tax to avoid jail, to avoid losing your personal property, because the government will take it. The government will imprison you. You know, there's no begging. You know, it's just the way it is.
So Ellis, let's debunk this once and for all for their sake, so they're not worrying about stupid stuff. Read this ridiculous comment. It's ridiculous because it's what's been peddled in the public sector and the mainstream.
How do I rate a spreadsheet?
Well, it says
spreadsheet.
Right, exactly. Republicans raided Social Security and stole our hard-earned benefits, which are a lot of us have to live on, albeit below poverty line. Please explain, just because I am so depressed when I see people that don't understand this, say they believe this, and therefore it keeps them stuck. I don't believe this person's a troll. I believe this person genuinely does not understand. Can you talk to Alina?
Yeah, this has nothing to do with Republicans. It could have been Democrats that the Republicans blame doing it. So it has nothing to do with party affiliation. It has something to do with actual operational reality. What the claim is that a political party robbed Social Security to go off and give money to the rich or do whatever it wanted to do. And that is like claiming that I opened up a Stephen King novel and robbed it of its words so I could write my grocery list. It doesn't make any sense. All right. Now, the reason why is this. FICA does not fund Social Security. I don't care what politicians tell. Could someone please do me a favor and stop having faith in what politicians tell you? All right? They're some of the biggest liars on the planet. All right? They're horrifying creatures. All right? The fact is, Social Security is nothing more than a spreadsheet. Okay? This trust fund we're talking about, it's a spreadsheet. That's all it is. It's not a bank account filled with gold coins. It's not a bank account filled with paper dollars. It's not a bank account filled with quarters, dimes, and nickels. Okay? It is nothing more than a spreadsheet. If you open up Microsoft Excel, you can see what a spreadsheet is. And it just has numbers in it. That's it. All right? Your FICA taxes that were collected from you when you worked, they come off your paycheck. They are destroyed upon receipt by the US government. Okay, and the US government records that FICA collection on a spreadsheet. Right? So if the numbers on the spreadsheet are going down, all that means is that Social Security beneficiaries are being paid their benefits. If it goes into the negative, it doesn't mean jack squat. It just means that the government is paying Social Security beneficiaries their benefits. That's it. Okay, that's the way it works. All right, politicians are lying. FICA, and all it really is, all FICA is a massive income tax on working people. That's what that is. So when you talk about raising the cap to make Social Security solvent, it doesn't make any sense because Social Security is eternally solvent. The only way to make Social Security run out of money is if Ted Cruz's dumbass and Donald Trump's ignorant, foolish ass stands up there and says, hey, let's defund the program. That's the only way you're going to bankrupt Social Security. Other than that, the government will continue to credit bank accounts of the recipients. Social Security is not a transfer of, well, here I worked for this money and then they put it here and then they give it to old people and then I got to wait when I'm 50-some years old or 60-some years old, then the young people working then give me my money and it doesn't work that way. What it is a transfer of goods and services. This is the thing that politicians don't like you to understand because then they can't control you politically. You know, they can't control your mind like this. What it is this. If there are, the question is for Social Security, is there enough food being produced? Are there enough computers being produced? Are there enough shoes, clothing? Okay, everything that you can imagine that you can buy with a US dollar, is enough of this being produced so that Social Security beneficiaries can buy it right along with everyone else in the nation. And if not, then Social Security is in trouble. Social Security will be in trouble because the beneficiaries will have nothing to spend their money on because there isn't enough being produced. So we need a situation of full employment so that we can max out our production capability to ensure that Social Security recipients can buy things with the benefit payments that they receive from the government. That's the real problem with Social Security. And the reason why politicians don't like to talk about it is because that means forward employment. They don't like to talk about full employment. Okay, so anything and everything to prevent someone from getting a job at a decent wage. That's what this is all about. All right? The question for Social Security is never money. The problem with Social Security is never money. The question is always real resources, the goods and services. Are there enough goods and services being produced so that old people and the disabled can consume them right along with everyone else in the United States? And if the answer is yes, Social Security has no problem. If the answer is no, we have a shortage of supply because government's not spending enough to increase productivity, to increase production, then the answer is we can't increase Social Security beneficiaries' payments until we increase production. And that's as simple as that. That's the truth.
Well done. So, Ellis, let's take another step into this because obviously people don't understand these things. It's good to see that we've.
You know, Steve, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just had a thought and I'll forget it because I'm old.
Go for it.
I love how our show is dynamic. You know, we always talk about, okay, what are we going to talk about? And then we have it set down, we're ready to go. I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, a couple hours, but I know, I can mention this. And then someone will make a comment and they'll go off in a totally different direction, but it's always a good learning experience for everyone. You know,
yes,
I love that. I love that dynamic.
That's what makes this show in general perfect because, honest to God, I kid you not, folks, keep me honest here. There's no slight on anybody, but I'm going to ask you point blank. When you go to Lee Camp, does he teach you economics? No. When you go to Tim Black? No. When you go to Debbie? No. When you go to any of them? No. H.A. Goodman even? No. And not one of them does it go into economics. You'll hear people talk about like the latest thing that a politician's putting forward, like, hey, let's fight for 15. Why not fight for a living wage? Oh, because the politicians are saying fight for 15. Okay, does $15 an hour get you anywhere? No. Will you still die? Yeah. And have you ever thought about what would happen if you were trapped in a creek and the water's running real fast and the water's right here and you're like, somebody please lower the water so I can breathe. And the Democrats go, we'll lower the water. You better believe it. $15 an hour coming up. So they bring the water right here, and you can see over the water line, but damn it, you can't get your nose over it so you still die. That's $15 an hour. That's the fight for 15 to me. You want a living wage because people need to survive. But unfortunately, because people refuse to do the homework, they follow their trusted servants, these leaders that only do what you will allow them to do because they're afraid to say anything that would shake your world, like, I don't know, taxes don't fund spending. Or, hey, Social Security is not broke. You're not really paying into it. Your Social Security dollars, deleted. Every dollar spent, new dollar. But I put $1 in there in 1919. It should still be there, right? That's my hard-earned Social Security. Wrong. Just another tax, another deletion. So this is where we are, folks. Politicians cannot tell you something that you don't already accept. So they still treat you like a small child, telling you that the creator of the currency is somehow or another just like your household budget. And you know what? We have nothing to do but blame ourselves because we refuse to learn, and they have to accept where we are, that we're not willing to learn, that we're lazy, that we're not willing to understand, and that we'll fight tooth and nail for a lie. And so there you go. That's why we're stuck where we are. You want to change it? It's going to start with you and I to change it. All right, that's my take on it. What do you think?
A lot of the fight for 15 thing, when you go up to some progressives and say, no, let's fight for something larger, like a job guarantee, or let's fight, to raise the wage to X. They'll say, well, you can't raise the wage any higher than 15 because it's too much pressure on business. I mean, it increases the cost of business, and as we all know, if you raise the cost too high, they're going to pass that on to the consumer at higher prices, or maybe, that might even result in some unemployment there. And the truth is that, like I've said before, and I'll just say it again, be very blunt about it, if you believe that raising the wage is only a cost to business and that business will either pass that cost on to the consumer or the business itself will just lay off people, then what you're saying is that workers never spend their paychecks. That's what you're saying. You're saying that workers, when they're paid, they simply hoard the paycheck under the mattress and they don't spend it. Okay? Believe me, that's what you're saying. Because you're claiming that there's no demand component to wages. You're just claiming that it's a cost component. All right? And you know that's absurd. So if we raise the wage to $20 an hour, could a business afford to pay $20 an hour? And the answer is yes, as long as the government itself is doing the right thing in deficit spending for full employment and public purpose. You see what I'm saying? Because business and your consumers out there, all right, are all currency users. Now, we're not saying that, you know, if the government just keeps going the way it is and you raise the wage, it won't work, because it will. But if you want to see decent wages, and hey, there's Tom Pittman. I'd say hello to Tom Pittman. He just got out of surgery at the NHS. Well done, mate. Hope you get well. Speedy recovery, mate. I just saw that. I had to say that. You know? So I've been thinking about Tom a lot.
Hey, Ellis, I want to raise something up too, because I think this is super important. You know, we use humor as much as we can because we know this subject is a subject most people wouldn't touch with a 20-foot pole.
I use it when I teach because it helps.
Absolutely. We use sarcasm. Why? Because people like George Carlin, and they watch him, and they, for whatever reason, I don't know why it is, but for whatever reason, when George Carlin told you something, you didn't get offended because he told you how it was in a humorous, mocking fashion. So why in the world would you take it that way when we're just trying to present a very difficult, dry subject in a way that shakes people from their nice, comfy nest of wrong ideas? We're doing the same thing, but yet people get their feels. Oh, it hurts, it hurts. Show me on this doll where my advocacy for MMT hurts you. Show me where it hurts. It's bullshit, folks. You just got to get over it, because honest to God, most people, these videos, there's tons of videos on YouTube. And you know what? The only ones these people watch are the ones that tell them the world's going to come to an end, Federal Reserve's owned by a bunch of evil Jews, and they're all that's the stuff that people will watch on YouTube. But when you give them the straight dope without the mockery, you go, well, according to this equation right here, young Chauncey, they have shown you the blah, 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 blah. The reality is people go, oh, I'm gone, and they walk away. And what we found, unfortunately, fortunately, whatever, is that this subject, which is the most critical subject you will ever learn, the most critical one. Why? Because every other one of your subjects, from Black Lives Matter to the environment to friggin' ending neoliberalism to ending racism, all stem down to rising tides so that everyone is participating in the economy, which all requires an understanding of the things we're trying to teach. But sadly, people will take 20,000 strong to the streets to protest like 0.0000003% of these morons, instead of taking 100,000 people to the streets to protest the lies the government's telling us about Social Security being broke, or the lies they're telling us about our taxes paying for funding of spending. But they'll go out there, fist in the air, asking for Donald Trump's tax returns. But then when we try and explain to them, that's not where your focus needs to be. You need to be talking about Medicare for all. You need to be talking about how we can afford the entirety of a New Deal in one fell swoop because we have the resources, we'll never go broke, and we can do it. And they've been lying to us, and we're coming up on the debt ceiling, and people are still talking about taxes, and we got to cut spending, we got to do this crap. Why is that? Because people don't listen to the boring, well, if you just look at the whiteboard there, son, we'll notice the ex post facto of the blah, 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 blah. Okay? Reality is that what we're trying to do is to save lives. And if it bruises an ego or two, we're willing to take that hit. That's just the deal, man. I mean, it's important to understand that that's exactly what we're dealing with, too. Because people don't pay attention to economics. They do not. And that's why we keep getting stuck. That's why you see no progress. You see friggin' progressives pumping their fists feverishly, marching in place as they go into the tar pits, saying, let's get a UBI. We got to raise taxes to do this, that, and the other. Over and over again, the least qualified to lead the march. And it's time for us to wake up so we stop allowing these demigods to lead us into the tar pits. So if it bruises your feelings, imagine how much more bruised you'll be when you follow some moron that doesn't understand what we're telling you, and then we all really do die. That's the deal, folks. That's the straight deal. Your kids deserve better than that level of idiocy. Your kids demand that you learn so that they don't have to die for your lackadaisical pursuit of economics. Now, if that's too strong a thing, I'm sorry. We can go back to mocking and making jokes so that we can get people to understand it in a less threatening fashion. But the reality is climate is not getting any better, and it's man-made, and you guys want to worry about green energy and stuff like that, but you've got to understand how to operate in a monetary economy, and that's what we have. And you don't get to end it because you just decided you don't like money, because the fact is that the Green Party got less than 1%, and the rest of us too busy chasing after Trump's tax returns to be of any value. So you don't get to burn it down because there's not enough numbers of intellectual people that are willing to fight for truth. You want to know why we're stuck? Look no further than the pussy hats. That's all you got to know. And if mockery wakes them up, I'll take the beatings that occur for people getting bruised feelings, because we are not going to die for people being freaking hashtag culture, bumper sticker logic, bullshit nonsense. There you go. That's the deal. Straight dope. Sorry, Ellis, I hijacked it there, but it was important. I feel like it's super important for people to get this.
I use humor when I talk, and I still do, to teach difficult concepts, which could be dry. I mean, very boring, but I like to make them fun. But what's understandable, what you can understand though, is that once people get a grip on some of the basics, it actually becomes interesting and fun on its own without the humor, because it's exciting to finally realize that mainstream economics is not economics at all. It's not economics whatsoever. It's propaganda. For the 1%. And I should make a point too, I've made this point several times, that the 1%, okay, what we're talking about is the wealthy, corporate America, the financial sector. They make economics the main issue 100% of the time. And it's something that you should really understand. 1%'s not sitting up there worrying about Trump's tax returns. They're not sitting up there worrying about some political issue or some fad that the Democratic Party has handed out, or some fad the Republican Party has handed out. They don't worry about that. They only worry about my money. Where's my money? And the federal government has it all. Okay, it's the creator of the dollar, and that's all they care about. Using it to continue building their own wealth and maintaining their power over you. It's that simple, all right? So when you don't take economics seriously, and I'm not talking about mainstream economics, please understand me, that's not economics, okay? Stuff you hear from Paul Krugman, it's not economics, it's propaganda, okay? The stuff you heard from Milton Friedman, the monetarists, from the Chicago School, it's fucking propaganda, all right? It's not economics, it's propaganda that's masquerading around as economics. So that crap that they teach in college, okay, that mainstream crap, that orthodox crap that they teach in college, that's not economics at all. It's propaganda masquerading as economics. It's ideological political propaganda, all right? That's what it is, all right? So everything that you think you know about economics, or thought you knew, all right, you have to erase all traces of it in order to understand what's really going on. Okay.
So, Ellis, I want to ask a question. I'll preface it by saying I think I know the answer, but I want to ask the question mainly for the audience, right? You have people that are talking about this country is going to go to gold. We'll never be able to survive, so we're going to topple them, blah, blah, blah. You have them talk about Bitcoin in the middle of the night, blah, blah, blah. They are all over the place. Literally, they'll read this crap in these bad blogs all day long. I mean, all day long, they will read about the coming economic collapse and how we're all going to die. They will not skip a beat, and they will forward this garbage around like you wouldn't believe.
That's a far-right myth. That's
but it's penetrated because the Ron Paul and the LOL Bartering influence has come into the quote-unquote progressive community. And this is extraordinarily distressing to me because these nonsensical, bullshit, non-economically literate blogs are getting lots of attention. Honest to God, we have little chats where we send our army out to go attack these fools. And literally, we look, and there will be 60,000 likes on some of these ridiculous anonymous posts, some of these ridiculous nonsensical posts from these various entities and that say these preposterously stupid myths and legends, and you get thousands, I mean, ridiculous amounts of people sitting there waxing about how it's all over, we're all going to die. And I'm not even joking. They may not pay attention to 5 minutes of the actual solution, but damn it, they will spend their lives watching Doomsday. Explain that to me.
It's bad. I mean, the way what I mean to say is, in no uncertain terms, I'll just put it plainly. When you hear this shit over and over and over and over and over again from politicians and from nut jobs and whatnot, it becomes like pop culture, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It becomes like pop culture. People start, oh, that's an awesome story. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, that's so awesome. And it's on everybody's tongue. And pretty soon, everybody wants to know what OJ did, the night before. You know what I'm talking about? It's like tabloid journalism. All right? And when the story becomes so popular that it's on the tip of the tongue of everybody and it's filled with the hilt with drama, everybody's going to like, oh yeah, like. But see, it's really easy to just regurgitate nonsense on a blog and get 1,000, 2,000, 5 million, 18 million, 100 million likes because you're just regurgitating nonsense. But when you go out there and you're actually analyzing the real stuff, what's really going on, you're analyzing it, you're putting equations together and all that crap, and you got the result. If it sounds boring, it is. If reality is boring, it's very boring, I guess, for people. They can't handle the boredom, so they need James Bond to enter the picture. It's boring that the Federal Reserve is just this central bank, which for all intents and purposes, is just a scorekeeper. And the U.S. Treasury is the referee. And the U.S. Treasury says it's watching a game between the Packers and the Patriots. And the New England Patriots score a touchdown. And so the U.S. Treasury looks at the Federal Reserve and it says, award 6 points to the New England Patriots. And so the Federal Reserve says, okay. And it puts the number 6 up there on their account. That's boring. It's not very exciting. So they need Blofeld. Okay, they need Blofeld to show up. And he needs to seize control of the scorekeeper. And now I shall rule the world. I expect you to die, Mr. Bond. And so then you hear the James Bond theme start up and everything. And so now it becomes interesting. Oh, like. It's what Eddie Izzard said. He did a show many, many years ago. Stand-up Dressel. And Eddie Izzard said he was talking about British films, okay, and how boring they were at one time, but they're getting better, But he says, Americans, they like to add like aliens and guns and everything. So, a room with a view to hell, and that kind of thing. And he says guns and all sorts of UFOs and everything, and he's like got popcorn going. And that's exactly true. It's kind of dull, but as soon as you have a room with a view of hell, staircase of Satan, and people are going, now they're eating the popcorn going like this. That's exactly what's going on here. If I explain central bank operations, and I don't make it funny, okay? And I don't explain it in a way that anybody could understand and try and make people laugh, they're going to like and fall asleep on you. But if suddenly I add the Rothschilds in there and a global banking conspiracy and everybody's going to die and the US government's at the Fed's knees and the Rothschilds rule the world, it's popcorn. Like. They treat it like a fucking movie.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It really is. I mean, you know, it's interesting because as we sit there and talk about, you know, a perfect example, and maybe the most poignant one of our time, right? People are talking about the banksters. They're talking about the banks are putting out all this money. They're doing all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And they don't understand that the reason why the banks have a play in this game at all right now is a direct result of Congress. So rather than hold Congress to account for spending on the people, rather than hold Congress to account to make college free so we're not in debt to the banksters, you know, rather than pay free so that we're not in debt to the banksters and to the big pharma and all this other stuff, rather than do these things, they would rather focus their gaze on the shiny object, exit stage right. And they don't pay attention to this stuff. And so I'm watching like the Empire Files and all this stuff. They're saying these things that are like, oh God, it's like 3/4 of truth, but they always come to the wrong answer at the end. They always come to the wrong conclusion at the end, and they spin this cycle, and they want to fight and defeat neoliberalism, and yet they literally don't understand money creation. They literally are stuck in this world where banks own the world, and they don't understand that Congress has basically gone like this. Hey, man, you do what you got to do. We're going to go ahead and let you guys fill the void in spending by making everybody go into private credit, private debt. And then, oh, my God, when they get so full of private debt, then we'll have to bail everybody out again. And, well, they won't bail us out. They'll bail some bank out. They'll bail some friggin' automaker out, or they'll bail something out, but they won't bail us out. Why is that? Well, we don't have accounts at the Fed, whatever. But the bottom line is that our Congress doesn't do its job. And for whatever reason, rather than accept that that is the real deal right there, they spin a James Bond yarn, and that becomes the narrative. And my God, you can't put the brakes on it. And you watch people flailing about, all histrionics, talking about these conspiracies and the deep state and this, that, and the other. The deep stupid, as I call it, because it's blocking people from actionable change. Actionable change, which you can find in terms of forcing Congress. Oh, we have bad elections. Fuck that. Let's show up at the doorstep. Let's put friggin' laser things on their house so we can't get in trouble for destruction of property, saying, we know what you did, MFer. You know, let's go sit in the halls of Congress. Let's go sit in the Supreme Court. Let's sit on the steps of the friggin' Capitol. Let's let's do something instead of sitting there bitching and whining about how it's all hopeless and we can't do anything and we're all going to die. I mean, that right there, the progressive give up strategy has been going on for a long, long time. And I'm here to put an end to it. That's what we try to put an end to that bullshit.
Yeah, anyway. The private debt thing is all a creation of Congress. Yes, we should jail the banksters because they did some vicious shit and they should be in prison for the rest of their fucking lives. And I don't care how much time intervenes. There should be no statute of limitations. But that being said, the truth of the matter is that private debt, bank credit, all right, is an alternative to the US dollar. All right, it spends like one. Okay, you can buy things with it, but you got to pay it back. And government spends, you don't have to pay it back. All right. So when the government doesn't spend and wages are really low, you've got this thing called a huge spending gap. All right, a huge spending gap. And the only way to keep consumer spending going so that unemployment doesn't, rise is to fill that gap with bank credit. So basically we just operate, all you're really seeing, all these people who are confused and pointing to the banksters and all that, they're all confused because what they're really seeing is just monetary policy in action. Fed sets the price of bank lending, and then banks begin to lend. They decide who to lend to, who's creditworthy, and they keep lowering their standards so more and more people can consume. And when wages are low, all right, and you have a situation of mainly low-wage underemployment, which means part-time work, was low wage, and people need 2-3 jobs just to get by, and anyone who's poor can get a credit card or get a loan from a bank or payday loan, what have you. All right, it's just they use that to fill that gap. All right, when you're not making enough money, bank credit comes to the rescue. All right, when government is not spending. All right, and I'll explain this. I should explain this really, really quick. I can do this in an easy way where even people, if they're just willing to listen, they'll understand. The problem is that we have 3 sectors in the economy. Okay, you have the government sector, you have the domestic private sector, that's you and me. Okay, and then you have the foreign sector, that's everything outside the US. All right, right now, and since the mid-1980s, we've had what's called a current account deficit, which means we're importing more than we are exporting. And so dollars that are in the US economy are flowing into foreign hands, into non-residents' hands. Okay, that means that the available dollars in the United States for US consumers to use keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. If the government is not spending, deficit spending, okay, unemployment's going to rise because dollars are leaving. Okay, so this is what the problem is. You've got this gap forming, and so what we do is we say, well, here's what we can do. We can keep wages low, and we can fill this spending gap. But we can also ensure that our production is sold by just allowing banks to expand their lending. Just start expanding private debt. Everybody goes in. So, over 40 years of this crap, you see these people, low wages, they can't afford shit, but they have a credit card. And they're buying toothpaste, they're buying clothes for the kids, and everything else that you can imagine, which they should be buying with their wages, but they can't because the wages are being used to pay back all the fucking private debt that they've been incurring. While Congress sits on its happy ass, making $170,000 a year and giving billions to rich people in the form of tax cuts, basically what we're saying is we're allowing them to keep all the national income that they've stolen. Okay, that's all that's happening. The rich people are stealing national income, and the way that they've been doing it is wages, by suppressing wages. When you suppress wages and demand productivity increase, you create a gap. All right, there's this gap here. All right, wages, real wage and productivity goes way out of line. That gap represents the transfer of gross domestic product, that's national income, to the rich and away from the worker. All right? So GDP is redistributing to rich people. And in the end, the Republicans say, here, have a tax cut. All that does is allow them to keep more of what they've stole from you. See how that works? So what do you do? I mean, in a situation of low wages like that, it sounds suicidal. How do corporations manage to keep producing anything and ensure that what they produce gets sold so they can profit? Talk to your financial sector. Talk to your banks. They're more than willing to lend. And Congress will say, that's fine because we're not going to deficit spend for full employment and public purpose. So leave those wages low and let's let those banks lend. And guess what? Businessman gets his production sold, the financial sector gets a nice tidy profit off the interest, and you get a fucking millstone of debt hanging around your neck, and the people to blame, you want to know who to blame? There are 535 of them sitting on Capitol Hill. That is who you blame. And if that means so be it.
So Ellis, one of the things that Matt asked, which is a valid question, and I want to give Matt credit because I think he's actually fighting through this to learn. So I want to say this. He says, hey, I think I agree with what you're saying, but I don't understand the applicability. All right. And so what I want to just state clearly is that bottom line, we're not broke. So when Ben Carson goes running around telling you that the national debt is the single greatest concern we have, it's a lie, right? It's just a brazen lie. Anybody that says it, even accidentally, is lying, right? The next thing is that when we say that we're going to have to eat our peas and tighten our belts like Obama did during the sequestration, is lying. And we know that everybody else that went along with it is lying as well. When they say that we can't afford, like Hillary, think about what an awful, disgusting, vile, decrepit pile of dung she was when she said, well, we can't pay, how are we going to pay for Bernie's plan? Is the narrative that most vote blue sycophants repeat ad nauseum because they're unable and unwilling to break free of the worthlessness of their party leaders and know the truth. Instead of making economics political, they should just say economics just is. How we apply it is political, okay? And the fact of the matter is that we have constantly been told we can't afford things. To make the point, right here, right now, today, Congress could sit down if we put enough pressure on them. Hostile nation, a nation ready to take to the streets with torches and pitchforks. It doesn't matter about the elections. They want to make sure that we are not out there friggin' blowing the world up. So with that in mind, when you put enough pressure on Congress to act, you can sit there once you understand the way the financial system works, the monetary system works, our particular system works. We know empirically that we can afford to do all this stuff in one fell swoop. We can put together a real New Deal package that addresses healthcare, that addresses college, that addresses green energy, that addresses high-speed rail, that addresses paid family and medical leave, that involves making a paid holiday for election day, on and on and on, that we can expand polling, that we can do anything. We can do these things once you understand MMT, once you understand sectoral balances, and once you demand your Congress act on your best interest. Instead, we sit there and go, well, Bernie said that we had to reduce the deficit. So since I don't think for myself, and he said that, then that must be the truth. Worthless. That's the stuff that I'm talking about right there. Politicians are not your God, they are servants. Make them do our bidding. Period. Don't go to a politician for economic advice. They're not economists. They don't know. They require you to put pressure up. That's why we do this. Any thoughts on that, Ellis? Did I step out of line there?
No. MMT, the question was, how does MMT apply? Or how is it applicable to what we do? Knowledge of MMT basically means that you understand the monetary system as it exists right now, okay? And you understand through MMT, you understand that the monetary system can be used for both good things and nefarious purposes. And for the last 40 years, it has been used for nefarious purposes by Congress. To understand what I'm saying, it's real simple. Congress doesn't write bills that says, you know, here's an act that pays every sitting member of Congress $500 million each. Okay, they don't do that. They raise their own pay by X amount. But then they go out and they direct all of government spending and all favorable tax arrangements at the rich. Okay, so the rich are the greatest beneficiaries of federal deficit spending. They're sucking up all the dollars that are being created. Every single dollar from deficit spending is a brand new dollar added to the US economy, and the rich are soaking it up. Right? Understand that so far. Right? Then the rich turn around and they give congressmen even more. They give it back to them. So they give them some. So congressmen are getting perks everywhere. And why are they doing that? For favorable legislation to keep the water tap, the money tap, the dollar tap, flowing only towards the rich. Okay? That's how it applies. When we understand MMT, we understand the monetary system. And when we understand it, we come to the realization that there is no can't. There is nothing we can't do. We're not going to die from inflation if we have universal health care. We're not going to die from inflation if we have full employment, because MMT demonstrates conclusively that the Phillips curve no longer applies. We vacate it with a job guarantee. Done. There is no trade-off. All right? We know conclusively we're not going to die from inflation, from having high-speed rail, or doing anything that doesn't benefit solely the military or the rich. We know this. And once you know this, you realize that you're being lied to, and then the old adage suddenly becomes obvious. Politicians are fucking liars, and they're ripping me off. They're stripping me of my birthright, and they're giving it to people who don't deserve it. Everyone should benefit. Everyone should derive good benefit from their economy. And if they're not, then Congress is not doing its job. Then Parliament is not doing its job. All right? It's doing the bidding of somebody else. And that shit has to stop. That is what, after you understand the basic fundamentals of MMT, you begin to come to these realizations. And so that is how MMT applies here. It allows the progressive movement to put forward a truly radical progressive agenda that is 100% achievable without fearing death, destruction, hyperinflation, and the 1,000 other beautiful excuses that the fucking mainstream serves up to you. It's just a pile of steaming bullshit is what they're serving you. They're telling you that there's monsters hiding in your closet and they're ready to eat your shoes. Don't do anything unless it benefits the rich, or we're all going to die. And in the end, Stephen, in the end, the truth of the matter is all of this is designed and intentionally designed. And congressmen are the mouthpieces. They're the billboards. They're the advertisements to prove somehow to the people and make them believe that the 1%, the rich, are all important. They're very important. They're very relevant to your prosperity. And when you understand MMT, when you understand it, you realize that the rich are completely irrelevant. They are worthless pieces of shit. They are nothing but a house of cards. They have dressed themselves up as kings and queens, but they're no such thing. They have absolutely no power except the numbers in their bank account to buy protection from you. You can craft a powerful, progressive, radical progressive agenda with MMT at the core. And how do you apply it? When you seize control of Congress, give me 1 year and I'll have full employment. I'll have universal health care. I'll have green energy. I'll have high-speed rail. I'll have an infrastructure that'll make you puke just looking at it. You go, oh my God, how did they build that? And you'll just pass out. I will do great things within 1 year's time. Seize control of Congress. And when I say I'm talking about the MMT community, is what I mean. We will do great things in 12 months. You seize control of Congress, we will give you great things, and there will be no ill side effects. And when you notice that, you will know you've been lied to. And then if you want to go get the rich, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to stand aside and say, you do what you want to do. Hey? If you want to imprison the banksters, go for it. Yeah? If you want to tax the rich into the fucking ground till they're no longer rich, hey, I've had it. But give me and my people prosperity first. We can deliver this with no ill side effects.
So, hey, Ellis, so I want to say something else too. When you go back to the primaries, which I know folks, I see some of these people just don't get that something phenomenal happened and we got to find a way to recapture that unity, whether it be bringing the Grateful Dead and Jerry Garcia out of the freaking, mausoleum so he can start playing again. So we can get people showing up at dead shows hearing about economics, or whether it be Bernie Sanders' way he did it. When you think about him in Sacramento, when there was 27,000 people just surrounding him, okay? I'm not talking about Bernie, I'm not talking about the dead, I'm talking about we the people. Mm-hmm. When we the people do that and we stay there, right, we can achieve great things. The problem is, even with that many people, many of those people were there for the spectacle. They were there to see something neat. They wanted to be a part of history. Okay? The reality is that when it didn't go their way, they fell off the train. They ran screaming. They went crying. They did something else instead of realizing that the more power we have, we keep growing in numbers, and we don't need a leader. We press forward and we make it happen. But even then, people that I talk to this day, burners that I talk to in other groups, these folks will sit there tooth and nail and tell you that we can't do these things, period. They are defeatists. They're defeated before they even start trying. They are completely and utterly sidelined.
Can I ask them a question then?
Sure.
How come with Bernie it was achievable? How come with Bernie $33 trillion of new spending was not impossible? It was not inflationary. It was all achievable. How come with Bernie it was, but as soon as Bernie was screwed over by Clinton and the Democrats, how come all of a sudden it's impossible? What does that matter? What does it matter who's talking about it? How did it suddenly go from possible to impossible? How did it go from non-inflationary to hyperinflation? Huh? I don't get that. Okay? And yeah, you know, people can talk politics all they want, but that's not the solution. Just talking about politics you see on television or you hear politicians talk about, that's not the solution. The solution is what I'm talking about right here. It's not just me, it's the MMT community. Right? There's Bill Mitchell. Right? There's Stephen Hale, Fellow Kaboom, Stephanie Kelton. All right? Scott Fulweiler. Right? Right? You know, Warren Mosler, Pavlina Chernova, all right? Joe Firestone. There's a show every Saturday, all right? There's a whole bunch of us. There's thousands. There's thousands of us around the world, even more than that. So it's not just me. So I'm telling you the answer. Sitting there talking about, oh, well, Rachel Maddow mentioned fascism. Okay, well, that's the problem. That's not. How come I wasn't hearing about fascism out of your mouth 6 months ago? Now I am. Oh, because of recent events and Rachel Maddow's running her mouth about it. I've yet to hear Rachel Maddow speak hope to any fucking thing. She just wants to keep telling me what the problem is. All right, what's your solution? Well, the solution is to fight back. Okay. Ellis, let's fight back, Steve. It doesn't give anybody health care.
Good, and I want to get back to this one point, right? So we talk about the rich being irrelevant. Okay, what is that to make the rich irrelevant? Stephanie Kelton, yourself, etc. You guys have been pounding, you in particular, have been pounding this idea that since taxes, the richest tax money, doesn't pay for nothing. It's deleted, literally deleted. When you understand that at the federal level, at the macro level, those taxes are literally deleted. When people want to create a 2-front, a 3-front, a 4-front war fighting about taxes before they get somebody life-saving medical care, that's when we got a serious problem of priority and incompetence. Be it at the population level or be it at the elected official level, you are literally talking about a level of incompetence that is lethal to our children. So what we're saying is make the rich irrelevant by going ahead and doing it anyway, because those taxes are deleted. They don't get repurposed. They don't get recycled. None of that shit. Warren Mosler says that if you think that printing money is government spending, then taxing is unprinting money. Okay? So while you're sitting there making the rich feel like gods, making the rich feel like they're relevant somehow or another, that we have to beg them for some porridge so we can survive, Tiny Tim style, okay? Instead of realizing that the government is the one that's spending this money and that we forget them. Who cares about them? The one thing they want is our adulation. They want to be gods. And the way we treat them, we need your money, sir, makes them feel like gods. Make them irrelevant and do it without them. Fuck them. Right?
Yeah. I took to Twitter several years ago, many years ago. Well, I think it was like maybe 3 years ago. Yeah, it was about 3 years ago. I started a new tack where I said, look, I began telling people on Twitter, I think it was about 2015, I think it was. I started telling people the 1% are irrelevant to your prosperity. And I said, the best revenge against the rich is to make them irrelevant. And the reason why people have a hard time understanding this is because the rich are dependent on your view of them. They're dependent on you believing that they're aristocracy. They're dependent on you thinking they're great, glorious gods. Okay? Like great aristocracy. Beautiful people that are better than you, and they shit marble and they spit diamonds. Okay? They want you to believe this about themselves. And I went there and I told people, you need to make the 1% irrelevant. You need to make the 1% irrelevant, and you do that by doing great things right now. Okay. And what I mean by that is what you do about fascism, what you do about 1%, what you do about any other problem. What you do is simple. You spend for full employment and public purpose right now. Okay? What that means is you do great things right now, and then you tax the rich after that. Why? Because saving lives and giving people prosperity and full stomachs is far more important than destroying US dollars. You can even do this at the same time you want, if you want, just as long as you initiate it without telling me, well, we need to tax the rich before we do this because we need the money from the lie. That's a lie of Jon Stewart. That's a lie of Rachel Maddow. That's a lie of orthodox economics. It's a lie. You don't need to tax the rich to have the money so you can pay for this. That's a bunch of crap. And it's designed to perpetuate the bullshit. You know, people say, well, fascism. It's designed to perpetuate fascism. When they say the 1%, it's designed to perpetuate the 1%'s rule over you. When they say oligarchy, it's designed to perpetuate the oligarchy's rule over you. These lies about how federal spending works, they're designed to make you give up hope and think the only way that you can achieve any of this is to tax the rich, to get the money so the government can hand it over and get some universal health care. Right? That's what this is all designed to do. It's propaganda. That's it. Whoever can, I mean, what Karl Marx said over 100 years ago, we talked about this last week. The ruling ideas of the day are the ideas of the ruling class. Right? So if you believe that fascism is in control, if you believe that there's an oligarchy firmly in control, then you must understand politicians tell you about how federal spending works are the ideas of the oligarchy. Ideas of the 1%. And why the fuck would they want to tell you the fucking truth? Think about that. They're not. You're being lied to. Politicians, the media, blogs and everything. The federal government is the issuer of the currency. It issues the US dollar. It has done so since 1798. It will continue to do so unabated. It does not need tax dollars to pay for things because it's already issued the dollar. Every single rich person that's rich out there is not rich because they worked hard and played by the rules. They're rich because the government made them rich. Congress made them rich, I should say. And that's another thing. Stop conflating politicians with government. The US government is not the politicians. The politicians are a bunch of worthless pieces of shit that are in control of your government. They serve the 1%. They serve the rich. They serve the fascists. And they only care about them. And it's during election years that people like Pelosi and Ted Cruz, they smile and they stare at your face. They say they love you. They care about you. Yeah, fuck you. They don't care about dick. Right? That's what I'm telling you. The solution is you get these fucks out of office. And you replace them with people who are willing to turn the federal government's spending tap and aim it at the 99% perpetually. Perpetually. And the rich can go fuck themselves. And here's why they can go fuck themselves. They can settle with their little businesses and their little corporations. They can settle to earn whatever consumers are willing to buy from their businesses. And that's it. And that's not enough, then fuck off out of the country. Eh? Find another capitalist paradise to go to. Because I'm busy transitioning out into a post-capitalist society by first ending poverty, by first abolishing involuntary unemployment and engendering prosperity. And I will see to it that people have healthcare because it's a human right and it'll be free of charge. It'll be free of fucking charge. I will see to it that the oil companies either retool for green energy or they can fuck off. See how that works? That's what government does. That's its job. It's supposed to do that. The reason why it's not doing it is because we keep voting for these pinheaded fucks who work for the 1%. And the 1% don't want you to have shit. They want to keep... I'm telling you, and MMT is telling you that there's a better way. What we have to do is just reverse the process. Now, yeah, simplistic it sounds. Yes, it is. That's simple. It's complex as to how it will work and how it's done without inflation and all that. Yes, exactly. That's kind of complex. It takes a while to understand. But once you understand that, then you know that everything you've been told is just bullshit. And it is. It's 100% horseshit on a stick.
Amen. All right. So, Ellis, one last thing before we rock one out of here. You know, as you and I, two dudes sitting there talking about a very important issue that affects all of us, as we watch ourselves say these things and we watch the responses for people that have never heard this stuff, that say this stuff, momentarily pretending like politicians are good people that are just dealing with us at our level. These guys, imagine what would happen if a politician came out and said something like, I don't know, hey, you know, taxes don't fund spending, guys, and blah, blah, blah. Imagine how many of your heads would explode. Imagine the other media, wherever that media might be coming from, saying, oh, my God, this guy is crazy. Think about the gaslighting that occurred when Bernie ran and talked about all these grand ambitions. And people said, well, how are you going to pay for it? Over and over and over again, they sat there and they said these things. And so if that is your idea, that if a politician doesn't say it, then how could it be true? Then you're missing the point. They have to get reelected. They have to actually keep relevant. Otherwise, people will mock and throw them out. Yeah. So they say things that are acceptable to you because this is your knowledge level. It requires people like myself and Ellis and others, hopefully many, many others. And we have a huge army of people that are out there disabusing people of idiocy every day. If we don't do it, it will never change. If you're looking for the politicians to suddenly change, you're smoking crack. It's the wrong answer. They're not changing without the full force of the 99% storming the gates and telling them, we know what the fuck we're talking about. You better start spending now. Anyway, Ellis, closing thoughts, sir?
Yeah. Bernie. See, it's my campaign pin, just in case anyone doubted that I was on Bernie's side during the campaign. Yes, I was a heavy supporter. All right, so let's just be clear about that. And now my closing words are fuck the 1%. They're irrelevant. They're irrelevant to you. They mean nothing to you. They have no power over you. They're worthless pieces of shit. They don't mean anything. And I don't ever want to see another fucking thing about $21 trillion in debt ever again.
It's a sign of idiocy, pure, unadulterated.
The national debt is a bunch of savings accounts. It's not a debt. If this guy would simply do something simple, please. Go and get the numbers. Add up all the cash and coin, all the reserve balances, and all securities accounts balances, and suddenly you'll find out that all the US dollars in existence right now equal the national debt to the penny. Now
look at all the sidelining. Wow.
So anyway.
Jesus, flip. Hey, on a good note, Ellis, let's not allow the full cups that want to buy into doom. Let's just go ahead and end on a good note. Thank you for a great broadcast tonight, sir. I appreciate it. The people that had ears to hear, I think they heard. The people that didn't have ears to hear, well, we'll get them next time. In the meantime, thank you all for joining us tonight. We will see you guys next week. Of course, we've got a bunch of other shows throughout the week. And Real Progressives has brought in a whole bunch of new talent here. We're bringing people on. Some new shows as we go forward and a lot more coverage of events that matter to you. So with that, I'm Steve Grumbine, my friend Sir Ellis Winningham. Have a good day, everybody.